Hi, my name's Denise Sampson, and my presentation is on Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Britain. Her leadership was characterized following the situational theory, but she is a bit of an enigma. She had a pragmatic approach to solving problems, and she was very willing to make tough decisions based on the situation at the time. She also inspired others through her enthusiasm and commitment to her goals and her strong belief in nationalism. Her style of leadership is mostly autocratic when it comes to making a decision, but she's also transformational at times because she could motivate people by selling a clear vision of what Britain's future should be, and that it resonated with a lot of her followers from all backgrounds. And she created tangible results when uniting people toward their common goal for that period. Margaret Thatcher was a situational leader, but even though that is the theory that she fell under, she had a few different styles of leadership that fell under that. She was mainly an autocratic leader, and I have some examples on the presentation. But she also was charismatic. She's very self-confident. She was considered transformational for her time in office because of her being a great defender of the British territory. But she also was a bit authoritative because she did have a lot of self-confidence. She did have a clear vision for the country. Thatcherism was an ideological movement that evolved because of Thatcher's beliefs and policies. It was called this because at the time Britain was impressed with her resolve and strength to make decisions at a time when politics was male-dominated. Her ideology was marked by a commitment to free markets, privatization, individual responsibility, and creating a more fair playing ground for the middle and lower classes. She felt that if she helped reform trade unions and expanded financial services, like through the Big Bang reforms and privatizing British Telecom and Rover cars, that this would greatly help with the economy for Britain at the time. An example of some of her situational leadership theory traits would be that during her time as Prime Minister, there was economic turmoil and social upheaval. And two examples were in 1980, the Iranian embassy was stormed in London, and the hostage negotiations were going very slowly. The hostage takers were threatening to kill a hostage every hour. As soon as that started to happen, and as soon as she heard that, she jumped in and she decided to get a task force together, and it was the SAS, And they went in, they stormed in, and they killed all but one of the hostage takers. And everyone at that time felt that that was a really great sign of her quick decision making. Another event that had happened was in 1982, the Falkland Islands. It was British territory in the South Atlantic, and Argentina decided that they were going to make a move on it to occupy it as their own. And she wanted nothing of it. And so she again set out, she formed a war cabinet rather quickly. The conflict lasted only 74 days, and the Argentina government eventually they surrendered. That one conflict alone helped really establish her as a very, very capable commander-in-chief. So she was definitely proving herself as a very strong leader. The one thing that eventually ended up leading to her resigning in late 1989, 1990, was even though she started out in the 80s with lowering inflation for Great Britain, she believed in privatization of state-owned assets. She wanted deregulation, and she wanted the financial industry especially to be deregulated. She wanted to drastically reduce the trade unions' power. And in fact, she actually was successful in doing that when the miners' strike, the coal miners' strike, they had a strike in 1983, and negotiations just were slow, 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 and eventually it ended up erupting in violence on the strikers' part and the union's part. And once the violence started, Margaret Thatcher said that there would be no negotiations with them as long as that violence was occurring. And eventually she had won out, and in 1984 the strike ended. Unfortunately, eventually, with coal mining starting to disappear, that also started to lead to a lot of unemployment. So eventually this all started to kind of trickle down into her later years, thus kind of changing her strength in office. After an 11-year term, and most of her cabinet had been promoted, the ones that remained and new ones coming in started to worry about their popularity and their position. They began to speak up more and more, And with the new blood coming in and the changing tide of the country, her strength of power started to wane some. The real downturn came when she finally had decided to implement the poll tax, or the flat rate tax. After such a great run and a flourishing economy, voters really were not ready to welcome a new tax, and they deemed it very unfair, especially to the middle and the lower classes. But she held fast, and because of her staunchness on this tax, it kind of helped to kind of create the authoritarian style at the time that she had. And that's not a time to have that type of leadership style. It wasn't needed then, especially when everyone kind of felt like they were still flourishing. But eventually, after she spoke to some of her cabinet, who had said that, although they admired her, that they weren't going to support her for re-election because they felt that the tax was definitely going to probably cause her to lose in the election, that she decided to gracefully resign instead of being defeated in public. And so she did resign in late 1989. Ended her term in the beginning of 1990. A compelling figure who left an indelible mark on British politics and history. With her strong-willed personality and unwavering commitment to achieve her goals, she demonstrated how powerful she could be, especially a female in office. Her legacy still continues to this day, and some do see her as a transformational leader.